Hi everyone. Here I wanted to talk to you about fundamentals of data and information. We're going to be talking about general and special definitions of data, general and special definitions of information, and the semiotic triangle of meaning, and the information and data life cycles. So let's first talk about the general definition of data. And these are my terms, the general and special, but the way that the terms are used are as I see them in the literature and in common speak. So data originally means anything given. So datum, the word datum from the Latin means given. And you may, if you know Spanish or a similar language, you know that the data means dado, and dado means given. Algo es dado. And it's a common word just in regular speak. So data in this sense, though, usually refers to anything that appears to us, anything that seems to exist, any phenomenon, anything given, any difference or pattern that exists is data. Now, this general definition of data, as I call it, is a more theoretical and, well, I think broader view of data. So this is data as reference to the air, water, chemistry, energy, social relations, thoughts, or any observed phenomena in the world. And this data is used in this way in theory, but I think not very much in practice. So I just mentioned here because it exists. People do talk about data in the sense, but this is not that common. Usually the way people use data is in what I call the special definition of data, or maybe you can think of it more specific. And that is data as recorded information. So that is the letters, numerals, or other symbols that represent something and that have a material basis in a record. So on a paper or a film or a computer storage and in transistors and so on. So usually when people talk about data, it's recorded information. And even more specifically, when people are referring to data, such as, let me see the data before I can believe it. Where is the data that you got this this conclusion from? And that is what people mean is usually recorded correct information. So in common parlance, data refers to reliable, carefully recorded and organized information. So for example, the results from carefully conducted studies, data from various instances to make general statements. And that's the special definition of data. This is the common way that people talk about data. Data is recorded information. Just one caveat here I wanted to bring up is that real data can refer to fictional or imaginary information. So fake images, fantasy stories, fake news, pure gibberish, or gobbledygook. For example, the story of Harry Potter, a fantasy fiction story, if you store it in your computer, it's data. But the content to which it refers is fictional. Right? So the image here, we have a fake called this deep. Sometimes they call this a deep fake. And this is the original image of the actress Jennifer Lawrence, I think. And then someone created a deep fake where they added the face of another actor, Steve Buscemi, onto it. And it's kind of even hard to see which one is real, right? And we can tell because of the comparison, but this is data, but it's not true data in terms of true information. But when we do have this kind of fake data, the record itself, or what we call the metadata, can be truthful. So information about the data, such as who created this fake image, when was it created, when was it first published, and so on. So the metadata can still be truthful, even though we're talking about more imaginary or fake information. And this view of data is what an academic calls information as thing. So there's a famous writing by Buckland talking about information as thing. And essentially, he's referring to the data the document, the tangible form of representation, the books, the magazines, the film, the pottery, the physical bits and bytes saved in the transistor, in the flash drive, in the CD-ROM. So that's information as thing or data, or what I call recorded information. Now let's talk about the general and special definitions of information. So information, there's actually three things going on when people talk about information. It's either the signs or is it the symbols that represent or refer to something else in the world, the concept or interpretation of something in the world, or of the signs or symbols themselves, one or two, or the relationship between the sign or symbol to a concept or interpretation, or to another thing, event, or process in the world. And I'd like to remind us that actually information is not one, not two, but really this one here, the relationship between. This is why information is so kind of interesting, because information is not a thing in itself. Information is a relation between things. So let's unpack this a little bit more. Often information is defined as semantic content. So you can see this from Floridi reading. So he puts this equation: information equals data plus meaning, data in that general sense of anything with meaning. So essentially information is meaning. But what is meaning? Well, meaning is a reference to something else. So meaning is the relation, is the connection itself. News articles, fiction books, stupid social media posts, data quality reports, spoken words, songs, mathematical symbols, etc. They're all references to concepts or interpretations. And I use various terms here just so we can kind of get the hang of it, and people use different terms. I'll also call this mental model. So they are all references to concepts or to the external objects, events, or processes in the world. That was the general definition of information. So it's any semantic content, any of this kind of relationship between symbols and thoughts and or things in the world. Now, there's also a special definition of information, which is as true semantic content. So not just as some symbol that refers to some idea, but where it's true or correct. So this is actually, people do use the term information in this sense, as information as true information, or correct representation, or valid reference or correspondence to something else. So for example, in this definition of information, the earth is a sphere and the sun is magnetic is information, but the earth is flat and nobody knows what the sun is not information. Now, in the general view of information, both of these is information. They're all symbols, and you can kind of imagine the earth being flat. So there is a relation between these symbols here that we're reading of the English language, these words we call them, and a flat earth. That's all information. But in this special definition of information, this is not the case. So that's information. So to review here, information are relation between signs and thoughts, or thoughts and objects, or signs and objects. And I'll explore this a little bit more with this lecture on semiotics. And the special definition of data is recorded information. This is how we usually think and talk about data, and that's how I use the term. And also the special definition of information is true semantic content or true information. And often we talk about information in the general sense, but I like to keep in mind that this is the special view as well, and one that we want to keep in mind. That's it for this one, and I'll see you next time.